your life now?
It's about if a deal isn't good for both sides, then it's not a good deal, right? Like you can't, a one-sided deal is eventually going to either fall apart.
The pressure is boiling over in Los Angeles. With a game on the line and the Lakers' season hanging by a thread, LeBron James finally snapped. In a fiery fourth-quarter timeout, cameras caught the King unleashing a torrent of fury directly at a young teammate on the bench for a critical defensive mistake. The video is explosive, but the real shock came after the game. Lakers owner Jeanie Buss, witnessing the public breakdown of her team's culture, has responded not with support for her superstar, but with a stunning final warning. This is the story of the moment the Lakers' internal war went from cold to scorching hot, and the owner who decided enough was enough. The stage was a critical late-season game against a Western Conference rival, a virtual must-win for the Lakers' fading playoff hopes. With under 4 minutes left and the Lakers clinging to a 2-point lead, the opposing team's star guard came off a high scream. The Lakers' defensive scheme called for a hard show from the young big man, Jackson Hayes, to deter the drive before recovering to his own man. Instead, Hayes, perhaps fearing a foul or misreading the guard's intention, took a hesitant half-step back. It was all the space the elite scorer needed. He rose up, drained a three-pointer, and gave his team the lead. The arena erupted for the visitors. The Lakers called an immediate, frantic timeout. As the players trudged to the bench, the atmosphere was thick with the grim awareness that the season might have just slipped through their fingers. LeBron James, who had played 38 grueling minutes, did not sit. He stood in the middle of the huddle, chest heaving, as head coach Darvin Ham began to draw up a play. Before Ham could finish, LeBron's hand shot up, cutting him off. He turned, not to the coach, but directly to the 23-year-old Hayes, who was looking at the floor. "What was that, Jax?" LeBron's voice was a low, seething growl audible to the first few rows of courtside seats. "What are you doing? You show. You know the coverage. You show and you make him give it up. You don't just back up and give him a birthday present." The cameras, always fixed on the Lakers bench in moments of high drama, zoomed in. Hayes mumbled something, barely audible, about thinking the guard was driving. "I don't care what you thought," LeBron exploded, his composure shattering. The anger wasn't just about one play. It was the culmination of a season of frustration, of carrying an inconsistent roster, of watching precious wins dissolve through repeated, correctable errors. You play the scheme. This is how we lose. This is how we keep losing. You gotta be smarter than that. The tirade lasted maybe 15 seconds, but in those seconds, the hierarchy and the hopelessness of the Lakers' internal war were laid bare. The head coach was a bystander. The veteran leader was publicly eviscerating a young role player for a basketball sin in front of 18,000 people and a national television audience. It wasn't a teaching moment. It was a public execution. The timeout ended. The Lakers, visibly shell-shocked, went back out and lost the game. But the real loss was the last shred of unified culture. The video clip, labeled "LeBron Snaps on Teammate," was trending globally within minutes. And in an owner's suite high above the court, Jeanie Buss watched it all, her expression shifting from concern
And O's. I empower people that do understand the X's and O's. And if I can't trust them, then they're not the right person for the job. And so, I can't deal with people who know something's coming down, the street, and then they try to...
997, officially a sellout at Crypto.com Arena. On the
Jeanie Buss did not wait until the morning. The very public nature of the incident demanded an immediate, equally public response. While post-game press conferences focused on the loss, a different statement was being prepared. Within an hour of the final buzzer, a terse, devastatingly clear memo was issued from the Lakers ownership group to the entire basketball operations staff. It was not leaked. It was officially released, making its intention unambiguous. The statement, attributed directly to Jeanie Buss, read, "Tonight's game was a difficult loss in a critical moment of our season. While the competitive fire of our players is never in question, how we channel that fire defines us. The Los Angeles Lakers are built on a standard of excellence that includes respect, accountability, and collective responsibility, from ownership to the front office to the coaching staff and to every player on our roster. Publicly targeting teammates during games is unacceptable and counter to the values this organization upholds. Our focus must remain on solutions, support, and playing for each other, especially in adversity. This is non-negotiable. Effective immediately, all internal matters will be addressed through the proper channels established by our coaching and leadership staff. Our sole focus is on unifying this group and competing the right way as we push forward." The statement was a grenade. It did not mention LeBron James by name, but it didn't have to. Everyone knew the target. By using phrases like publicly targeting teammates and non-negotiable, Jeanie Buss accomplished several things at once. First, she publicly sided with the young player, protecting him and signaling to the rest of the roster that such treatment would not be tolerated from anyone. Second, she reasserted the authority of the coaching staff, proper channels, which LeBron had blatantly bypassed in his fury. Most importantly, she framed LeBron's outburst not as passionate leadership, but as a violation of the Lakers' values. She transformed him from the frustrated leader into the problem needing correction. This was the final warning in the headline. It was a sovereign decree, drawing a bright red line around acceptable conduct. The private frustrations, the back-channel criticisms, the years of passive-aggressive power struggles were now irrelevant. LeBron had finally provided a clear, televisable act of insubordination against the culture she was trying to enforce, and she seized it to deliver the most direct, institutional rebuke of his Lakers tenure. The message was clear. You are the greatest player we have ever had, but you are not greater than the code we live by. Step over this line again, and the consequences will be real. The war was no longer cold. The owner had just fired the first official shot across the King's bow.
To the specifics of the reporting, I've been sitting and thinking about this. To me, the fact that this got out there is the story. Not necessarily just the specifics of it and why various guys are frustrated, not necessarily the 6 sources, which is a funny
of the year. They begin the night tied for 4th with Houston. There's LeBron! Throw it down with 2 hands to start the game.
LeBron really active to start.
The owner's public statement did not quell the storm. It deepened the freeze. The Lakers' facility the next day was described by staff as a morgue. The incident had effectively paralyzed the franchise at every level, creating an atmosphere of such intense apprehension that normal basketball operations became impossible. For the players, especially the younger ones and role players, the environment became untenable. The incident confirmed their worst fears. Making a mistake in a big moment could lead to a humiliating public rebuke from the team's alpha, and now trying to navigate the aftermath meant being caught between that alpha and an owner who had just defended them. Do they go to LeBron to smooth things over, risking the owner's wrath for engaging in improper channels? Or do they avoid him, creating a chilling, practical rift in the locker room that destroys on-court chemistry? Jackson Hayes, the target, was reportedly shaken and considering requesting a meeting with his agent. The trust required for a team to function, the trust to make a mistake, had been obliterated. For the coaching staff, Darvin Ham's authority was now a hollow shell. LeBron had openly bypassed him in a key moment, and the owner's statement, while nominally supporting proper channels, had also indirectly highlighted his powerlessness in the moment. How could he command the huddle when the world saw he couldn't control it? Any strategic adjustment or correction he tried to make would now be viewed through the lens of this public power struggle. His voice carried no weight. Most critically, the statement created a massive, unspoken rift between the franchise's two most powerful entities, LeBron James and Jeanie Buss. There was no path for a productive private meeting. Any conversation would now be a negotiation between a reprimanded employee and his boss who had just cited company policy. The partnership was dead, replaced by a strict, tense employer-employee dynamic. This made every future decision about roster moves, playing time, even practice schedules, a potential flashpoint. The front office was frozen, afraid to make any move that might be perceived as siding with one party over the other. The franchise wasn't just losing games, it had lost the ability to function. Jeanie Buss's final warning hadn't restored order, it had exposed the absolute lack of it, revealing a kingdom where the king and queen were now ruling by different decrees, leaving everyone else in the court too terrified to move.
I don't know. Obviously, for me, since my first NBA Finals appearance, I think in 2007, the moment I got an opportunity to be a part of that and taste that feeling, from there on, every season that I did not make it to the finals or did not win a championship.
Who's most likely to be first to dance at an event?
First likely to dance at an event on our team?
Him.
No, bro.
In the face of the owner's very public censure and the franchise-wide paralysis, LeBron James did what he does best. He executed a flawless, high-stakes power play. His response was not anger, not justification, not an apology. It was a profound, strategic, and unnerving silence. He did not post on social media. He did not speak to the media after the game or the next day at practice. He offered no explanation, no defense, no acknowledgement of the owner's statement. He simply arrived at the facility, went through his workouts with a focused, impersonal efficiency, and left. This was not the silence of contrition. It was the silence of a sovereign who has deemed the conversation beneath him. It communicated that the owner's warning was an administrative memo, not a decree from an equal. This silence was LeBron's ultimate leverage. It forced the entire organization and the watching basketball world to sit in the discomfort he had created. It highlighted a brutal truth. Jeanie Buss could set rules and defend culture, but she could not make the basketball go through the hoop. She could not win games. Her statement was about conduct. His silence was about consequences. The unspoken question his calm demeanor posed was devastating. You have disciplined your employee. Now, who is going to save your season? By withdrawing his voice, his leadership, his guidance, his on-court coaching, he demonstrated his value by removing it. He became the perfect compliant superstar, showing up, putting up numbers, but withholding the intangible, galvanizing force that turns a collection of players into a team. The Lakers' next game would be the first test. Would they play with fire, trying to prove they could win for the owner's principles? Or would they play stiff and scared, proving they could not function without LeBron's full investment? His silence turned the next tip-off into a referendum on Jeanie Buss's leadership. He had maneuvered her into a corner where the success or failure of the team she was trying to culturally purify would be seen as a direct result of her decision to publicly rebuke its engine. The king had not argued with the queen. He had simply handed her the sword and stepped back, forcing her to prove she could wield it without him.
Yeah, it's difficult with the loss of revenue due to no ticket sales in the arena. We are in a league that is dictated by a salary cap, a collective bargaining agreement. So we have to abide by all those rules. But the luxury tax.
The standoff has crystallized into an unwinnable war where both sides have mutually assured destruction at their fingertips. Every potential outcome now carries a catastrophic cost, not just for the season, but for the legacies of Jeanie Buss, LeBron James, and the Los Angeles Lakers brand itself. For the owner, victory is defined as reclaiming institutional control. If she forces LeBron to publicly conform, or if the team rallies and wins without his full emotional buy-in, she proves the Laker way is bigger than any player. But the cost of this victory is staggering. It likely means LeBron's departure, plunging the franchise into a long, painful rebuild with a damaged reputation. Her win would leave her the queen of a smoldering, irrelevant kingdom. The king faces a different calculus. If the team collapses without his full engagement, or if he is traded to a contender and immediately wins, it validates his entire stance that winning requires his methods, his intensity, and his leadership style, however harsh. But this victory also has a dark side. It cements a legacy of being a brilliant but terminally difficult force who fractured his final franchise. It adds a bitter, discordant note to his Lakers story, painting him as the king who broke the crown rather than uniting it. The true loser, regardless of outcome, is the myth of the Lakers. The brand was built on glamorous success and iconic partnerships: West and Baylor, Magic and Kareem, Kobe and Shaq. The LeBron era was supposed to be the next chapter. Instead, it has become a public case study in dysfunction. The allure is broken, the partnership is toxic, the family is at war. This damages the franchise's ability to attract the next transcendent talent for a decade. Young superstars will see not a legacy to join, but a battlefield to avoid. The war isn't just about this season. It's a fight over the soul of the next era, and both the owner and the king, in their struggle for dominance, are burning down the very palace they're fighting to rule. The legacy of this conflict will be a cautionary tale, a permanent stain on the legacy of all involved, and proof that in the modern NBA, even the most storied franchise can be hollowed out from the inside by a battle of wills.
And you just figure I imagine you'd want him to finish in a Laker uniform, right? That would be your choice.
That would be my choice, and he knows that's how I feel. Mm-hmm. But again, it's his story to tell, not mine. And so he has to decide how everything's going to go. And that's very important to allow him. He's earned that right.
Junior for a second challenge.
How about that? Things going well for Los Angeles.
We have now passed the point of no return. The public rebuke, the strategic silence, the frozen franchise, these are not steps in a negotiation. They are the final moves in a game of chess where the board itself is about to be flipped. There are only two possible endings to this story, and both are profoundly damaging. The Lakers must now choose which kind of disaster they are willing to endure. The first path leads to a stark new reality. The Lakers, backing the owner's principles to the bitter end, commit to a future built without its king. They explore trade options, seeking to salvage assets from the wreckage. LeBron James is dealt to a contender, where he immediately becomes the favorite for one final, narrative-shifting championship run, his story reborn as that of a liberated savior. The Lakers, meanwhile, enter the wilderness. Anthony Davis, if he stays, becomes the tragic face of a painful multi-year rebuild. The spotlight dims, the losses pile up. The owner rules over a franchise that is principled, stable, and utterly irrelevant on the national stage. The Laker way is preserved, but it becomes a museum piece, a philosophy for a bygone era, discussed with nostalgia rather than fear. The second path leads to a hollow, fragile truth, a forced, brokered peace. LeBron and the owner have a closed-door meeting. A bland joint statement is released about shared goals and moving forward together. LeBron re-engages. The team makes a desperate push for the playoffs, but the trust is annihilated. Every future timeout, every losing streak, every tough loss will be viewed through the lens of this fracture. The coaching staff will coach on eggshells. The young players will operate in fear of the next eruption. the franchise achieves a tense, unstable calm, but it installs a permanent fault line directly under its foundation. This is not peace. It is a Cold War fought with polite smiles, ensuring any future stress could trigger a final catastrophic quake. It saves the present by guaranteeing a future of quiet dread and compromised potential. In the end, this was never about a single defensive mistake in the fourth quarter. That was merely the spark. The explosion was fueled by years of simmering tensions between a superstar's win-at-all-costs sovereignty and an owner's struggle to maintain institutional control over a force of nature. Steph Curry's comments exposed a philosophical rift about legacy. This incident exposes a raw, operational one about power. Jeanie Buss drew a line to protect her franchise's culture. LeBron James, through silence, questioned whether a culture that cannot withstand his methods is a culture capable of winning at the level he demands. The final, tragic truth is that both are right and both have lost. The owner is right to defend a standard of conduct. The king is right to demand an environment where his will to win can be fully expressed. But their conflict has proven these two truths are incompatible within the walls of the current Lakers. So the ultimate question remains: when a king and his kingdom reach an impasse, does the future belong to the throne or to the man who showed he could walk away from it? The next move will echo for a generation. Subscribe to witness the final act of this Lakers tragedy.